Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is ASK GIBBO. Good evening, John.
Good evening. How are you, my friend?
All good, mate. Good to see you with a season of goodwill to all men, and there's plenty of misery circulating inside and in our chat tonight. I've just caught a glimpse of it before I came on, and wow, lots of people feeling a little bit down. Results obviously change things massively, as we know, but I guess the big talking point tonight, John, and we'll start with this before we come to the questions, is Callum Wilson's statement, which comes off the back of yesterday's news that Callum Wilson is for another couple of months. And Callum put this out on his social media and with the club's blessing. Despite all the hard work I've put in pushing to get back to full fitness, I need to take a little step backwards, unfortunately, guys. Frustrating as it is for everyone out there waiting for my return and to be able to help the team, these shortcomings also upset and frustrate me more than anything else. I will, and I am doing everything in my power to rediscover the best version of myself and finally get off this emotional roller coaster, which I'm hoping 2025 will bring. Appreciate the patience, love and support from all those closest that know how hard I really work and how professional I always am. Callum. It's a pity that he had to do that, and I get why he has, because some of the stuff I've seen on social media, stuff which you clearly don't see, John, because you're not on it, but been horrendous. Some awful comments from people who should know better. This guy's a footballer. Yes, he gets paid lots of money. His track record when he's been playing for Newcastle United has been brilliant. It sees him in that top four of number nines of all time with Newcastle for goals scored in appearances made. The crying shame for us and for him is that he doesn't play enough games. And sadly, that's something that's blighted him, not just at Newcastle, but at his previous club, Bournemouth. It's sad, and really is sad, but, I think we all knew that Callum's time at the club was probably coming to an end. I just wonder whether we'll see him again as we know him in a black and white shirt again, John. It's sad. It's sad for him, and it's very sad for us because it gives us a big dilemma in January, as if we didn't have one already.
Yeah, I've said that many times. I've always felt, going way back, when a player gets particularly blighted by injuries time and time again, I've had a huge amount of sympathy for them because their career is the one that's on the line. So they suffer more than us. I mean, I wrote that about Kieran Dyer going way back to the Bobby Robson time, and Kieran was nice enough to get in touch with me and thank me and say, you're the first person amongst the Hacks that have actually seen it from my point of view. And I do feel terribly sorry for Callum. But I also feel sorry for the Newcastle United supporters and for Eddie Howe and for everyone else, because it leaves us out on a limb. I mean, it's almost beyond belief, isn't it? And this is something he can't control, that he's getting these setbacks so regularly now. He's struggled with his fitness from his early days when he got bad injuries at Bournemouth and has never been quite the same since. And it's getting worse. And the harsh situation, as harsh as it might be for him and for the club and everything else, is if Newcastle were hoping to get a few quid for him before his contract run out in January to sort of get a replacement. That's gone. Nobody's going to buy him in January. So we all know he's now going to leave on a free transfer at the end of the season because the board will not allow Eddie, even if Eddie wanted to give him a new contract because his record is so bad on fitness and it takes up a huge peg and a huge chunk of wages. And so you're right. It's if we see Callum again in any shape or form before the end of the season. But I've got sympathy for him. I understand the thing, but I have only limited sympathy for the club. If I'm if I'm honestly truthful on this, because Steve, we've been shouting about it. When I say we, I mean not just me and you, but all the Newcastle United fans. We've been shouting about it for window after window after window that we've left ourselves exposed and relied on the fitness of Callum, which we can't rely on. and we've had no number 9. Now, if Isaac gets it, this situation, as you said, is dire enough at the moment with us 12th and 2 points out the last 12 available to us. The situation is tough enough. Heaven forbid that Isaac got injured on Saturday, for example, and I'm not tempting fate, but with the quarter final of the Carabao Cup to come up and the rest of the season, we are out on a limb. We are absolutely out on a limb, which has nothing to do with Callum, not his fault. Um, and I do, while I have a lot of sympathy for Eddie Howe at the moment, and no doubt we'll be coming on to that because there will be questions on that. What's his future? What's Newcastle United's future, etc., etc. I do think that the manager has been too cautious in the transfer market. He's too loyal to players. He's put all his eggs in one basket on Callum being able to provide the wonderful backup to Isaac that would be wonderful if he was fit because he's a quality striker. But he isn't fit. We've put all our eggs in that basket. It was hugely risky, and it's proved to be risky beyond our comprehension. And we are in a dire situation now, both in terms of trying to get to Wembley and in terms of trying to scratch ground back in the league and make up on 7 or 8 places in the league. And we haven't been professional on the way. And I think that Eddie, because while he doesn't drive the whole of the transfer market, his opinion is crucial, and so it should be because he picks a team. He's been too loyal to Callum and has sort of said we don't need a backup striker because Callum will more and more provide that, and it's become more and more obvious that the poor lad can't.
Yes, I agree, John. It's sad. We wish him all the best in his recovery, and we will, we'll just have to see how things pan out, not just with Callum, but also in the transfer window. Sean, he says, "Hi, Steve. I love the show with Gibbo, mate. I quit all social media 6 months ago. I deleted everything. Honestly, it's like being back in the 90s where we just had compassion for injuries. This world now, I get exactly where you're coming from, mate. I really, really do." Okay. Let's just look back briefly, and I mean briefly, John, at last weekend's game. Neither of us saw that coming, mate, did we? I mean, a game at 2 halves. First half, Newcastle in amongst it, give it a go, went for Brentford, who, as we'd already said, had a good home record and were scoring goals for fun, but we felt we could get something out of the game. But the second half, dear me, how Newcastle just rolled over and died.
Oh, I mean, it was dreadful. And even in the first half, and I know what you're saying, and it's true because we were sort of at 2-2 and we're in the game and that. But I tell you what, even in the first half, Steve, the goals we give away, why don't we just stand in the centre circle and cut our own throat? I mean, it was a nonsense. There were huge mistakes on all 4 goals. There was bad mistakes, and there was other mistakes that weren't punished. Pope come out and got himself in a mess, etc., etc. It was elementary stuff, and it was obvious mistakes. I mean, we've scored 5 goals in the last 2 games and not won either of them because we've conceded 7. I mean, we are throwing goals in the back of the net like there's no tomorrow, and you're not going to do much when that's happening. And I mean, the situation we have found ourselves in as we sit here now, we've taken 2 points out of the last 12. We've conceded 7 goals in 2 games over 3 days when we're 12th in the league. Now, what worries me is that 2 seasons ago we finished 4th, last season we finished 7th, and at the moment we're 12th. Now, if we don't improve on that in the second half of the season, Steve, facts are going to tell us we're going backwards, not forwards, aren't they? We've gone from 4th to 7th, and we're currently standing at 12th. And I mean, I think this week coming up is so big, it's absolutely untrue. When we have Leicester at home in the league, we have Brentford at home in the Carabao Cup to get to the semi-final, and they are pussycats away from home. They're awesome at home, as you've said. They've got an awesome record at home, but they're pussycats away. They get hammered. So we've got Leicester at home, Brentford at home, Ipswich away. All winnable games. And the Newcastle United we know and love would win all three of those matches. But I tell you what, will we? And we've got to. And why is it such a big week? Because if we got knocked out of the cup when we're within touch and distance of the semi-final, and we've got a poor return of points in the two league games again, like we've got two out the last 12, it's going to do for the whole of the season. And you know what? It would do for the managers as well, Steve.
Yeah.
Eddie needs these three matches to go right.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not sure that the Saudi ownership would get rid of any, mid-season. I still don't see how they can bring anybody in on these kind of terms at the moment, because anyone coming in, John, is going to be told the same. Yeah, you might get a decent wage, but there's no money. We can't spend the money. We're hampered
I
by PSR.
you're absolutely right. I'm not saying it should happen, but I'm saying public opinion. If
Mhm.
we were out of the cup and we only get
Yeah,
2 points out the next games, it doesn't matter whether the Saudis stayed with Eddie or not. The whole atmosphere would be so fractured and that we would be in big trouble. May I emphasize, though, that, I feel sorry for Eddie because I think he is almost out of his depth now, because what I see is the problem is not something he can coach and put right Monday to Friday, because it's the individual um, way that players are looking at things. It's in the mind now. Are they going to care enough? Yes, they'll get up for Liverpool. Yes, they'll get up for Arsenal. Yes, they'll get up for Man City. But no, they don't get up for Everton. No, they don't get up for West Ham up here. They don't get up for Bournemouth or Fulham. And these are the sort of games. It is Eddie has done a terrific amount for these players. When they come, a lot of these blue chip players now, when they come to Newcastle, they were full of potential, but they weren't superstars. He and his coaching staff have made them superstars. He has never thrown them under a bus after bad results. He'd talk about the collective situation, but he has never nailed individuals, etc., etc. They now owe him something. Are they going to give him something back? Are they going to go out and do the job for which they're paid? Because I tell you what, on ability, Steve, on ability, we are better than Leicester. On ability, we are better than Brentford when Brentford are playing away from home. And on ability, we are better than Ipswich. So we should beat all three. The only thing that'll stop us beating all three is ourselves. If 5 players don't have the right attitude, then because it's a team game, we are in big trouble. And it's not the full team. And it might be subconscious, it might be this, and but if you look at the body language, the side that played Liverpool and the side that beat Arsenal, Steve, did you recognise them when we played Crystal Palace, when we played West Ham? Did you recognise them in the second half at Brentford? They're unrecognisable, aren't they? Now that's not form. That's form can go up and down, etc., etc. That's not form. It's attitude. It's determination. It's courage. It's call it team spirit, call it anything you like, but it's where the hunting packs and they're on the front foot from the start. They're enthusiastic. You look at some of the body language, and I worry, mate. Long before the second half at Brentford, I was worried. I was worried from virtually the kickoff against Crystal Palace when you looked at the body language of certain players. I'm not suggesting they're stacking the hand or anything like that. They're subconsciously resigned. If it doesn't go well in the first 5 minutes, oh well, we'll just go through the motions, etc., etc. We are struggling, and it's not form, and it's not inconsistency. We're consistent. You know why we're consistent? Because we know if we'll play Liverpool or we'll play Arsenal or we'll play Man City, we'll put in a shift and we'll look good. But we also know when we play the so-called smaller size, we won't. So we know what we're going to get, and that's what worries me now. Because Leicester, Brentford at home, and Ipswich, should represent 3 wins with the right attitude, because we've got better players than they've got.
Yeah, we'll come on to Leicester in the second half. Lots of questions coming in for Gibbo. Alan Little chucks in 2 small ones. He goes, what is Gibbo's favourite Tyne home kit and Tyne away kit?
There's a great question. I've been worried about so many things. I've never thought of the colour of the strip. I've thought about the amount of courage inside the strip. I mean, obviously, I'm like every other Newcastle United fan, I guess, of a certain age particularly. I mean, I can't see beyond black and white stripes. I mean, I would love us to play in black and white stripes every game we ever play. And if you went back to the old days, now, there didn't used to be an away strip, did there? It was only if you were actually forced to change your strip because you literally had the same colours that you had to change. I mean, I remember, and you remember, I'm certain, Steve, I remember Newcastle playing in black and white stripes against Sunderland, playing in red and white stripes, both with black shorts. You know, they almost were undefiable. But I've got a soft spot for the away strip we've got now, because when I had Gateshead and we filled the International Stadium for the first appearances on Tyneside of 2 Newcastle United new signings, who were called Les Ferdinand and David Ginola, and were sold out Gateshead 11,500 in 24 hours. They played in that original strip, you know, the original Entertainers away strip we've got now. So I have a lot of affection for that. But I'm a black and white man through and through. But to be truthful, I'm so concerned with other things at the moment that I don't care if they're bare buffed, like some of those supporters who are on the terraces in December in the cold with the bellies hanging out and whatever. I just want them to go out there and show big hearts.
And the other question that Alan asked was, who would you say was Newcastle United's hardest player in your time as a fan? He's gone for Billy Whitehurst.
Oh, yes. I mean, Billy Whitehurst terrified me to death, and I was only going out for a drink with him in the big market. I wasn't playing against him, but he terrified me to death. Just being around him. He was frightening, was Billy, because he was genuinely hard and genuinely tough, and he could take the knocks and give the knocks. And then, I mean, their own players. I remember after Billy got transferred, we were going down. I think he got transferred. I think he was at Oxford at the time, and we were going down to play Oxford. And Glenn Rode, who had been a teammate of Billy's at St James's Park, was playing against him, and he said, Gibbo, when he got back on him, he said, Gibbo, I was absolutely terrified about playing against Big Billy. And he said, I spent the whole time saying to Billy, like, hey, we're missing you at Buff Park. And can you remember when we went to Buff Park for the dogs and this dog won and that dog won, and trying to keep him on side. And he said, Peter Jackson, who played centre half with Rode, he said Peter didn't have the sense to try to be nice to Billy. He just didn't talk to him. He said, and Billy took his forearm and smashed it over his nose and bust his nose all over his face. So he said, and that's why I talked to him the whole game, because I was absolutely terrified to death of him. And I remember Billy, who I'd become a good friend of when he was up here, giving me a phone call at the Chronicle, and I picked up the phone and I said, he said, hey, it's Billy Whitehurst. I said, how are you doing, big man? Why are you giving us a call? He said, hey, I'm coming back to the Northeast to sign for Sunderland. And my heart just fell into my boots, because I knew what that meant. I mean, what the nights were going to be like around town with Big Bruce and Billy. He was terrifying. He was as tough as it's possible to get. And we're talking centre forwards here. You're normally talking, aren't you, about tough guys? You're talking about centre halves or midfielders. You're talking about Chopper Harris and Tommy Smith and all the tough guys of these other sides. But Billy was a centre forward. He terrified centre halves. Centre halves didn't terrify Billy. Billy terrified centre halves. He was as wild as he can get.
Yeah, certainly was. Remember Big Billy, and sometimes he tunes into the show, so pass on my best to him now. Alan says, I bumped into Billy on Hexham High Street. That stare sent shivers down me, and I was a fan. Good stuff. Okay, moving on. Next question. John Askew said, our club has gone from feel good to anything, but it points to a major underlying problem. Do you think Eddie and Mr. Mitchell don't see eye to eye? Something's killing us at the moment, John.
Yes, something is. I don't think that's what it is. We'll find out whether they see eye to eye or not in January, because the only thing that involves, we are all onto Steve. You and I, the fans, everybody else are looking for reasons why Newcastle United are what they are. I don't think Paul Mitchell's got anything to do with us taking 2 points out the last 12. I don't think he's got anything to do with 7 goals conceded in the last 2 games. I don't think that's got anything to do with Paul Mitchell arriving here or Dan Ashworth leaving. And by the way, wasn't that a good leave when you consider he spent 5 months at Manchester United, who paid us compensation, and now he's blinking, they've got rid of him there. No, I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem is a lot of players who, when they came to St James's Park, bought into the proposition. This is what we're trying to build. This is how we're going to build it, and they bought into it big time, and they were up for it, and they were got huge fitness. They ran for an hour and a half plus any other time relentlessly. They pressed high. They did everything with enthusiasm. All of a sudden, we haven't bought a couple of people in the transfer market. Results haven't quite worked. And some of them are giving up the ghost and thinking, well, we're too good for it to be part of this. I mean, results wise, part of this. And perhaps have had their heads turned by, I can be a regular Champions League player if I went somewhere else. I think the problem Eddie's got, and it's a huge problem, Steve, because I don't think it can be this particular problem can be solved on the training ground, because it's between the ears. It only can be solved in the dressing room by being able to get into players. And he's almost held to ransom by the players, isn't he? Because he can't change it. Only the players can change it. He can either appeal to the better nature of the players, or he can threaten the players. Which one will work? Will either work? We're about to find out. I'm just hoping that the players, before we play Leicester, are stung by the mutterings of fans who are upset and disenchanted, and they suddenly think, we don't deserve this. This is an absolute disgrace. But it sparks them into going out there on Saturday and blowing Leicester away. Because I tell you what, forget about the fact that Leicester's got 4 points out of 6 since Van Nistelrooy come with a win and a draw. They're not suddenly world beaters. They're a very average side. And if we go after them from the kickoff until the final whistle on Saturday with the right attitude from all 11 players plus the subs have come on, there's only one winner. So I think the problem is in the minds of the players. The problem is making the players hungry again, making them realize they ought to be hungry again, and that they're not sort of they're under sufferance of some sort. The problem's mental, much more than tactical, or much more than physical. Yes, Eddie's made mistakes with team selections. He's made mistakes with unimaginative substitutes. What managers haven't. One of his biggest mistakes, I think, is been putting the block on some transfers, i.e., getting rid of players, whether that they are Miggy Almiron, whether they're Callum Wilson, whoever they are, and also not wanting certain players in. We needed a much greater turnaround in the transfer market. So there are things that stop at his door, but there are things he doesn't. He's unable to control. And I do think a lot of players who are top quality players now and who might think they would have futures with regular Champions League sides, great players like Isaac and like Gordon and like Bruno and like Joe Linton. And you know what? Every one of them I've just named, Steve, or Eddie Howe, because they weren't stars when they come here. but the Stars now and Eddie House
Yeah.
helped to make them that. And so they owe him now. Dig him out in these 3 matches, Leicester, Brentford, and Ipswich, because those 3 results, Steve, will determine what this season's all about. Forget whether the man sacked or not. That will determine. If we beat Leicester and Ipswich to get 6 points, which help win the league and win the semi-final of the cup, we're cooking. If we are out of the cup and we haven't got maximum points out of Leicester and Ipswich, we are in a very serious situation of being on a permanent downer. So this week, starting on Saturday against Leicester to the following Saturday when we play Ipswich, is going to be massive for us.
Certainly is. We are halfway through the show. We will have a quick ad break and we will be back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them by email, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel, our fanzine sponsors. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2024 tours, 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. 2024 Travel and Tourism Award winners. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. Our podcast is now available on Sport Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, hit the thumb up under the video, and that likes the video. Click share to share to your other social media, and hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Or hit the join button if you want to financially support us. It costs $1.99 a month. Some dates for your diary. The NUFC Matters Christmas party is in aid of Newcastle Dog and Cat Shelter. Tickets £10 from newcastlelegends.com. The event takes place Saturday, 28th of December, 7 till 11 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. The Longstands are making a reunion in aid of Newcastle Dog and Cat Shelter Saturday, January the 4th at the Clooney. Tickets are £15 from the Clooney venue or newcastlelegends.com. Peter Beardsley will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre on January the 10th. Tickets available from Woucher or from newcastlelegends.com. And an evening with the Entertainers, 24th of January. Box office number 0191 243 1171 or website Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. The Lee Clark event is now taking place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 31st of January. Tickets available from Woucher. And an afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand takes place the 6th of April 2025, 12 till 4 at the O2 City Hall in Newcastle. Tickets for that from ticketmaster.co.uk. We have limited fanzine subscriptions available. Go to the website newcastlelegends.com to order yours today. And Will Scott's book is also available from the same website, as well as the Backpage Shop, Waterstones, and WH Smith's.
Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. It is Ask Gibbo. Quite a few questions coming in. We won't get through all of them. Roger Cook said, Gibbo, who, if anyone, goes out on loan in January and will they be replaced? I mean, are we going to use the loan market? We've never used it, John, apart from Lewis Hall.
No, No, we haven't. I mean, he's talking about people going out on loan as well. Roger is, and the obvious person that ought to have gone out on loan is Asula, but of course he won't go out on loan because we haven't got a centre forward because Callum Wilson's not going to be available. And even though Eddie doesn't want to use Asula, he obviously thinks he's nowhere near ready. He's not going to have an option if Wilson is a backup. He's made 4 sub appearances recently. That's out the window. So Osula stays. And we don't. But on the other hand, bringing people in, we haven't done that. But if you think about it, Steve, what can we afford not to do? We all know we need an outside right. I mean, the embarrassment is we could pick a team for Saturday against Leicester, and we could probably name 10 players, but who would play outside right? Because Almiron is as far out as the Chinese, and then you've got Jacob Murphy, who you might have to play. We haven't got an outside right, so we want one of them in January. We haven't got a centre forward now because of Callum Wilson, so we want one of them in January. We've regularly wanted a centre half, and both our centre halves against Brentford, I thought Shaw and Burns suddenly looked desperately old, but they weren't alone. By the way, there's quite a few players looked shocking, but we need so many. We're going to have to use the loan system, and I'll just plead with Eddie because it's his future as well as our future that's on the line. Is get a bit more flexible in January because this is the last shout. When we get to the end of January, that's it. That is it. We're going to finish the season with a plus or with a minus. And we've got to be a bit more flexible and we've got to use the market. And I'm hoping that Paul Mitchell will encourage Eddie to do that because it's been, let's keep what we've got because they're all good lads. And let's not take this guy who come in case he's not a good lad. We need help. We need an outside right. We need a centre forward. We need a centre half. And can we afford to wait till January? Let's use the loan system whereby if these guys don't work, that you can send them back. But we really need to do something because to stay doing nothing is to tempt fate. And we've tempted fate with the centre forward situation with Callum, and it's come back to bite us big time.
Certainly has. If Eddie Howe didn't have a headache, you know he's got now he's got another big one. Mark Bayer says my money's on Supermac pulling on a black and white shirt again before Callum Wilson. Rob Maltman, good evening. He designs all of our flyers. Thank you, Rob. He says, what does Gibbo think of the transfer rumours of Evan Ferguson from Brighton coming in? He's a young lad. He's got potential. Scored a hat-trick against us last season.
Yes, he did. He's a decent player. He can't get in their side at the moment. But you know what worries me is that if we do anything at all in January, it's likely being outside right. And we're likely to just blunder on with the rest of the situation. And that's worrying. The only way around the financial fair play in terms of big transfer fees is to utilise the loan market. But I'm really getting desperate now. And by the way, these 3 games, Leicester, Brentford and Ipswich, take us up to Christmas. Now that'll determine where we are for January. Do we push on in January because we're still in the League Cup and we can rescue the league situation because we've got a few extra points? Are we in despair? We have got to do something. If we leave things, Steve, the way they are now, we are going to drift into nothing. And as I've emphasised already, 2 years ago we finished 4th. Last season we finished 7th. Anything below 7, and we're going backwards, Steve.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not a positive feeling around the club, but like you've already mentioned, the next 3 results could be pivotal, could turn our season around. We'll have to wait and see. Rob, I'm over the moon about Chris Wood, mate. 2nd ever Premier League footballer to be the highest scorer for 2 clubs, Nottingham Forest, of course, and Burnley since Shearer at Newcastle and Blackburn. Yeah, the record breaker continues. It's a pity Supermax not on, isn't it? So that I could tell him that I know a striker when I see one.
By the way, when I saw that and it said NFFC in Burnley, I noticed it didn't say NUFC because the goals he scored for us was Where's the Crown Jewels, weren't they? I mean,
Where is Hen's teeth?
aye, they were. I mean, good luck to the lad and all that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
and yes, I tell you what, at the moment you would give anything because we are in such a dire situation there. And you know what? Just and I'm not trying to heap sort of depression upon depression, but we've talked was at the top of the program. We were talking about Callum Wilson, and we both agreed that while we might be annoyed team wise that we've allowed ourselves to get in a position where we've got absolutely no cover for Isaac, we've got tremendous sympathy for Callum himself. And my worry, and please let it not be so, but my worry, Steve, is that Joe Willock is becoming the new Callum Wilson because that poor lad is now regularly suffering injuries. And I mean, when was he last fit? For 2 years ago, for a real run at the team, injury free, playing week after week. He comes in now, he has a good game, then he suddenly looks as if he's drifting through a game and he's got another injury, and now he's got another injury again. I mean, he's a quality player. I mean, please, for his sake, but and a lot for our sake, let's hope that Joe finds an answer to all this and doesn't become our new Callum Wilson, because that's tough for the club and it's desperately tough for the player.
Mark Bayer says Botman's back soon. Does Gibbo worry that we'll see how shift burn back to left back when Botman comes back? He says this is partly tongue in cheek from me, but wouldn't surprise me. Well, Mark, I think I must have subliminally passed that message on to you because I've already mentioned it twice on this panel on more than one occasion, definitely. And I can see Eddie Howe doing that.
Again, Eddie Howe is so loyal to so many players that he will get them into the side somewhere along the line. I mean, I've got enough nightmares at the moment without sitting up all night visualising Dan Burn playing left back again, because I've seen the Titanic turn quicker away from an iceberg than Dan Burn does playing left back. I mean, he doesn't catch a fast winger on the way back, never mind the first time. I mean, it's absolutely bloody frightening. The huge lift we would get with Botman coming back would be negated if we moved Dan to left back, because bless him, he has not got pace. And if it ever a defender's going to get exposed for pace, it's out on the tram lines. So we wouldn't want him to do that. But we've missed Botman. Of course, we've missed Botman, and I would be delighted to come back. But I mean, I mentioned early in the program, Steve, I look at our back four at Brentford. And what we've got the two current England fullbacks, Livramento and Hall. We've got Shaw with 86 caps for Switzerland. We've got Byrne, who's 8'6" and heads everything out the penalty area. And we looked at with a goalkeeper behind him that's got recalled to the England squad, and we've looked absolutely porous. I mean, our defences looked shocking. It was only 2 seasons ago, we let in only 33 goals, I think, in 38 league games when we finished fourth top. Magnificent. You can build a side on that. But I mean, we've drawn 3-3 with Liverpool and then lost 4-2 at Brentford. We've scored 5 goals in the last 2 games and won neither of them, where normally 5 goals should win your games. We've looked awful. We've looked awful. And honestly, if Eddie Howe picked his team against Leicester only on the form shown at Brentford, then there's nobody that would automatically get in the team. I mean, Isaac would, yes, etc., and whatever. And by the way, please, Eddie, because you're saving your own hide, our hide, and everybody else's season, please, Eddie, having decided that you could leave Tonali, not could leave, wanted to leave Tonali and Gordon out of the starting 11 at Brentford because they needed a rest. Can I ask you this, Steve? We play against Liverpool in midweek, and we play brilliantly, and we draw 3-3. Two of the stars of that game was Tonali and Gordon.
Yeah.
And the manager decides that they must be rested at Brentford because they're too exhausted. They put too much into the game. They're in their early 20s. Can I give you an example? Jamie Vardy, it's Leicester, who we are going to see close up this Saturday. He is 38 next month. In January, he is 38 years of age. In the last game against Brighton, he scored a goal in 86 minutes and made the equaliser in 92 minutes. And that was his third game in 9 days. He's 38-year-old. He was playing in his third game in 9 days, and he made the two late goals. He wasn't subbed. He wasn't subbed off. He made the two goals that saved his club in the last few minutes at 38. But evidently, Tonali and Gordon were too exhausted after they played against Liverpool to be able to start, according to the manager, not according to them, to be able to start at Brentford. And they're two little whippersnappers in their early 20s. Please God that they've been tucked up in bed at 9 o'clock every night since, and they're all fit and raring to go from the start against Leicester, because we need them.
Yes, that was a strange team selection, and these are the kind of things that Eddie Howe's job depends on. When you're doing that kind of thing. Okay, let's find another question before we start looking ahead to Leicester. Barry said, "Do you know much about young Dylan Stevenson, Gibbo? How far away do you think he is from the first team?"
I don't know that much about him, but I have been following him. I don't think he's anywhere close at the moment to the first team. That doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to be. I just think that Eddie's cautious, etc., etc. And they brought Sule in, who they presume was closer to the first team. We spent 10 million on Sule. And if we see him, it's for 3 minutes at the end of a game, Steve. So he's not bought for tomorrow. He's bought for 2 seasons away. And we might have to see him, by the way, in the future after this latest piece of Callum news. But no, I don't think anybody's quite ready yet. But, Eddie, his style isn't belt and braces, because he's a front foot. He loves front foot football. But he does err on the side of caution in our players ready. I mean, look at Tonali. What's up with Tonali? I mean, he is a superstar with Italy. He plays 90 minutes every game for Italy since he came back from his ban, and not only plays the full 90 minutes, but is the star man. We are told when he comes back home, he's got to be handled cautiously in case he's going to break down or something. I don't see Italy handling him cautiously. I mean, what's going on? Eddie, please help yourself and help us at the same time. And take the handbrake off. Take the handbrake off your thoughts. Players are ready if they're ready. If players are good players, poor souls, can they play 3 games in a week? Jimmy Vardy does at 39, 38-year-old next month. I mean, good God, these fellas are in their early 20s. Do they need kid gloves? Let's just let them. Can they play 3 games in a week? Tonali and Gordon. Dear me, if they can't, there's something wrong, isn't it?
Do you think Eddie knows his best 11? Asks Ian.
No, I'm not certain he does. I'm not certain that we do at the moment. You've got to do that, and you've got to have your faith in it. And do we see too many bogeymen round the corner? I mean, why don't we say with Tonali and Gordon, if they're feeling a bit tired, we still start with them. They're in their early 20s. They're both current internationals, as fit as lops. Let's put them in. And if they look tired, we'll sub them in the second half. But let's not hold them back. I mean, what are Leicester doing with Jamie Vardy?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have they lost his birth certificate? Do they not know how old he is? Like, do they think he's 25? And by the way, he did the damage right at the death. He hadn't been subbed. He was still on the pitch to score the goal that sparked them off, and then laid on. And he laid on a terrific equaliser. The guy couldn't have missed if you saw it. I mean, wonderful. You know, let us. I think Eddie has done so much good for this club and so much good for individuals within the club. You know what he's got to do for me, Steve? He's got to become something of a Las Vegas gambler. He's got to take chances. He's got to go for broke. He's got to change the current situation, which is really just slowly drifting away from us.
Yeah, certainly is. Try and get through one or two more questions. Roger wants to know, John, how on earth is the City court case answer not going to be revealed until March?
Well, I mean, everybody involved in this case is that terrified of what City, with limitless finances in the boardroom, what City will do. City have been rattling cages behind the scenes and saying, by the way, if we are found guilty of this, that, and the other, we are going to come after you like a ton of bricks. And this is going to go into mitigation and into legal cases. It's not going to be meekly accepted. And they're terrified, the Premier League. They want belt and braces on this decision, which they won't get. There won't be such a backlash from City. They're absolutely terrified of the whole thing, and they don't know how to handle it, because City won't accept whatever the decision is unless it was not guilty to 115 charges, which would be very difficult to imagine that they're not guilty of a single thing. They're going to be challenged big time, and they're just heading it off. But you can't head it off because it's going to come home to roost at some time.
Yeah, certainly is. Let's get one more in. Barry Hogan said, papers are linking us with Richarlison again. I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole. What about you, John?
Yeah, it's a good point, Barry. Very good point. In a healthy situation, and I mean we aren't healthy at the moment because of Callum Wilson, but I wouldn't either. He's another guy with great natural God-given ability, but I'm not certain what's keeping his cap on the top of his head or what's between his ears. And he doesn't play the way that his ability should make him play. I don't think is anything like the answer for us, not at all.
Gary says, John, do you think Eddie is trying to keep too many players happy by giving them game time? He says, I still don't understand why Tonali isn't getting any dead ball situations either.
I mean, it's quite incredible. We paid 52 million, come on, 55 million for this guy, and who you can see ability in, and yet we've kept a tight rein on him. Whether the tight rein is whether he can go forward or has got to sit as a six, whether he gets on free kicks, whether he's subbed late in the game. How many times does Sandro Tonali play 90 minutes for us? I haven't got the figures in front of me, but how many times? Yeah, he doesn't start and come on as a sub, or he starts and he gets subbed later in the game. Plays 90 minutes for Italy. Why doesn't he play 90 minutes? We've invested a huge amount of money in him, so we must rate him. And the manager keeps saying how much he rates him. So none of it makes sense. We need big time players to step up for us now. We need this Saturday. We need Tonali at his very best. We need Gordon at his very best. We need Isaac at his very best. We need Bruno and Joe Linton at the very best. And that's without mentioning all the other outriders that are around them. We need that. And if I was Eddie, I would send them out to start the game. And I would say, I'm not going to bring you off unless your shirt is so soaking with sweat that I know you can't put another foot in front of you. Otherwise, you stay out of there and you die if I die. Because we've got to get tough on this situation. We haven't got to worry about the players. We've got to worry about the club and the fans and everything else, because it's no good pussyfooting around. We spent big money and we're giving a fortune in wages to these guys. let them get on with the job. Let them stay out there and play in front of the fans and play badly or play indifferently or show that they're not bursting a gut. Let them take the flak. Or let them take the plaudits when they turn it round. Let them go out and beat Leicester, Brentford, and Ipswich because they should.
Okay, we've got one more question. Cristobal asks, question for Gibbo, if we turn the season around and manage to sneak into Europe, do you think we will be any better prepared for Europe than we were last season?
No. I mean, we were told, weren't we, Steve, that if there was any consolation in finishing 7th last year and missing out on Europe because Man United unbelievably beat Man City in the FA Cup final, we were told with the consolation we had is it virtually guaranteed this season we would have a huge bash at finishing in the top 4 because we wouldn't have midweek games in Europe, which Aston Villa have got, Chelsea, admittedly with a huge squad, have got, Man U have got, etc., etc. We would be able to push on and take advantage of what no other clubs has got with a dance card, which is very limited. So we'll be able to go out there and get all the results. What have we done? We're 12th. And you know what? Sitting here right now, Steve, our best chance of getting back into Europe is to win the Carabao Cup because we ought to beat Brentford, puts we in the semi-final. If we win the Carabao Cup, we're in Europe. Now, that is a better chance because we're talking about 3 games to get to Europe then, 2 semi-finals and a final, as opposed to how many league games for the rest of the season. Our best chance of getting into Europe has been reduced to us winning a domestic cup.
It has. Newcastle United take on Leicester City this Saturday, 3 o'clock kick-off. No TV coverage, of course. Sven Botman is training. He won't be considered for selection yet. Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles remain on the sidelines. Joe Willock, we'll find out at Eddie's press conference in the morning. Joe Linton, Fabian Shaw and Sandro Tonali are all now one booking away from serving a 1-match ban. As for Leicester City, early team news. Samari is suspended. Wilfred Ndidi and Harry Winks are both doubtful. Leicester are on the up since they appointed Ruud van Nistelrooy as their manager. They were 2-0 down. They drew 2-2 at home to Brighton on Sunday, following up on a 3-0 victory over West Ham at the King Power Stadium on Tuesday. Away from home, Leicester City have conceded 18 goals. That's the joint leakiest defence in the Premier League, on the road with Wolves. Referee on Saturday is Tom Bramall. It's his first Newcastle game of the season. And somebody who might as well get a job at Newcastle United, the best a man can get, Jared Gillett, is on VAR for the 5th time in 8 games for Newcastle. Must be some kind of record, that. John, we've already explained how important this game is for Newcastle, certainly in the Premier League, the need to get back to winning ways. I'm going to start first, John, which is unusual. I'm not confident we're going to manage to do that. I've got to be honest, I agree with Mark Byers in the chat. He feels that Leicester are going to come and sit and try and catch us on the counter. I still think there'll be goals. I think Newcastle have got this, they've got this habit now at the moment of scoring goals and conceding goals. We've found the knack, but it seems to have done something at the back. We just can't get it right, can we? I'm going to go for an entertaining 2-2. I think there'll be goals in this. A draw's no good for us. Leicester will be happy with the draw. But genuinely, I can't see Newcastle winning this. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to say that we're going to give them a shellacking and this is the team that we're going to beat and everything's going to be all right. But I don't think it'll be Saturday. I think it'll be 2-2. I do think, John, we will beat Brentford next week on Wednesday. So a double prediction from you, please. Saturday's game and Wednesday's game.
Haven't we been browbeaten down, Stephen? When I heard you a week ago tell us we would win at Brentford, and now you're telling us we can only get a draw with Leicester. And I can thoroughly understand why you're saying that, and I think loads of fans might be with you on that. I dare not go down that road because I am absolutely frightened with what happens to Newcastle United if we don't. Because let's be truthful, as you said, a 2-2 draw, which would be an awful result for us. It would be an awful result because where's the rest of the points going to come from in the league? Now, I know they've got 4 points out of 6 under Van Nistelrooy, who, by the way, if you look at his current record as a manager, is superb. He got better results for Manchester United than the permanent guy is getting. Van Nistelrooy, as the interim boss, got better results, and when he was back home in the Dutch league, I think he's gone almost a year without a defeat. That doesn't matter. The 4 points they got were got at home against West Ham, who were rubbish, and Brighton give up a 2-goal start. And they're not rubbish, but they give up a 2-goal start. Are we as bad as our results have been? No, but we're pretty damned average to what we have been. But I can't get away from the fact that Leicester are poor. I think Leicester are a poor team. And I think particularly on the road, they're a poor team. And you know what this is? This is the last chance saloon. Will the Newcastle United players please recognise that and please realise that and do something about it before it's too late? And I believe that the will in this particular game, it doesn't mean if we win this game, it's all sweetness and light and we're now which competition are we going to be in Europe next season. Nothing like that. But I think we will beat Leicester by about 3-1. I think we'll beat Brentford. And I
Great
still
stuff.
problems, but I think we'll win. And that's the biggest hurdle. I do believe we'll beat Leicester, and I do believe we'll beat Brentford on Wednesday. And if we don't, I will go into Fenwick's Christmas window and cut me throat in front of the public.
Oh, dear me, don't do that, mate. Don't do that. You've got too many shows to do in January. Good stuff, mate, as always. Thank you, everybody, for watching. 400 watching live. Means there's a couple of hundred of you watching live tonight on Twitter. Please come over to YouTube, search NUFC Matters, and hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. We will be back, me and Gibbo, that is, next Thursday. I will be back tomorrow night, slightly earlier time, with the Amigos of 4:30. Take care, John.
Take care. All the best. Keep the faith, guys.